I'm going into this trial, my trial, with a lot less ammunition than I'd like. I'm beginning to form a picture of what actually happened, maybe even circling the drain on a suspect. But Emma won't be generous enough to give me breathing room. She'll want to end this fast. Maybe if I do badly enough, it'll flip her sadistic switch and she'll want to keep playing. So you got charged with owning an AI. First time you do something exciting in your whole life. And I gotta find out through the fucking grapevine? My life is plenty exciting. Freckles. You could bore the polish off a resume checking robot. I've fucked Catholic school teachers with more active nightlives than you. Okay. So who'd you rope in? Anyone I know? Oh shit. Are you representing yourself? Fits within my budget. Screw your budget, you're going to jail. Thanks for the vote of confidence. It ain't a matter of how good a lawyer you are. Anyone who represents themselves in court has a fool for counsel. You represented yourself countless times. Not for anything I had a chance of losing. Your pal hasn't even been dead 48 hours. You're too close to this. You'll make mistakes. The powers that be really didn't want to give me a rain check. They're taking this very seriously. It's more dangerous than that. They're scared. Is there a precedent? An ad committing murder? How'd you pass law school without learning how to look this stuff up? I know what the net says. I'm asking you. The answer to that is not helpful to you at the moment. So what words of advice do you have? Get yourself a new lawyer. Can I close this chat now? Don't lose, Freckles. You don't need to tell me that. What are you reading, Adonai? I was reading David's employment contract with Noble Electronics before I got waylaid by spam texts. The one we found inside the panic room? It looks quite extensive. Should I skim it for you? Depends. Did you pass the bar exam since we last spoke? You comfortable? I am not. Ever seen that old movie with the gorilla and the skyscraper? They bring it into the city and... I understand the analogy, Adonai. I wish I could call it overkill. But considering the specs Sarah put up yesterday, maybe those bindings aren't heavy enough. Come to think of it, those numbers must have been faked along with the rest of what the machine read. If that was all a smokescreen David added to help her lay low, then her actual strength is more like... If your joints weren't currently locked up tighter than a vice, do you think you could escape this place? I hope that question is not indicative of your strategy. This is me trying to distract you, Sarah. Enjoy the hypothetical. I would estimate that the building's automated security would put 9 holes in me before I reached that door. 9's not so bad. I would not be able to function after the 7th. Ah. Well, if you haven't been planning some great escape, I would not do that. That would be illegal. And you would still be on trial. I remember. So what have you been doing all day, then? I am attempting to recover memories from Friday. You can do that? It is not dissimilar from the process of recovering data erased from any other computer, despite the difference in scale. I won't be able to remember everything, but if successful, I could recall individual pieces of information that could prove useful. That's a lot of coulds. And even if you're successful, you may not like what you find. Whatever happened that day, either you or David wanted you to forget it. Yes. But even so, I have to remember, because it's the last day that Father and I... Any luck so far, then? I can recall a slightly musty scent. Wow, case closed. What about you, Adonai? Have you formulated a plan for the trial's proceedings? Something like that. Young insists that serotonin isn't what killed David. I don't buy it. There's no other explanation for how he died. So she is lying? And if she repeats that lie on the stand, I'll need to expose it. Somehow. Somehow. Would she really commit perjury to protect Noble? To protect one of Noble's patents? She doesn't strike me as quite the corporate zealot she makes herself out to be. But you believe that she had something to do with Father's death? What do you think? I don't know. I don't know why anyone would kill Father. Considering the possible consequences of what he confessed to in his journal, I can think of. But then again, I don't understand why anyone would kill anyone. Do you? Bells tolling for thee. Means that the doors to the courtroom are unlocked. Let's... Wait, can you walk like that? Waddle will have to do. Wait a second. Across the hall, that's... Keep waddling, Sarah. I'll catch up. As you say, Adonai. This'll be a coin toss. You're that surprised to see me? I'm not surprised you'd want to see the outcome of this trial. I am surprised you'd want to talk to me. You're defending the android, right? Yeah. I'm defending Sarah's innocence. I don't think she killed David. Do you? I don't think it matters. Noble is what killed David. Whether it was with a pen stroke or a sleeper agent, killer android, or plain old goddamn arsenic, How could anyone that smart be that dumb? Why the hell did he ever sign his soul over to them? David may have been in over his head, but he wasn't a bad negotiator. I've read his contract. His position was strong. You're the lawyer. But a guy like me, working in music, can't tell you how many people I've seen screwed over by a big smile and a fat signing bonus. No such thing as corporate generosity. If you think you're getting a good deal, it's only because you don't know how much you just sold. How much you just sold? David's real wealth lay in his intellectual property, the potential energy of it hanging over the whole industry. If he sued even 1% of the companies taking inspiration from his Turing solution. There's a clause in his contract. If Noble ever did fire David, he would have retained control over all his patents afterwards. Yeah, see, that sounds nice. Only they never did fire him, did they? He just happened to die. An unforeseeable act of God. In contract law, they call that force majeure. I said, did you find anything interesting in the contract, Adonai? A few things, yeah. Basically, David was well taken care of, so long as they kept him around. And he'd retain control of his patents even after being let go. But what Porter said... Logically, if David were to pass while still employed, Noble would continue to control the bulk of his IP. So if they knew David was going to leave in a year, it would be very foolish of them to let Father go. Well, they wouldn't do it for no reason. With this contract, he could only be fired for serious offenses. Corporate malfeasance, revealing trade secrets, fraud. Father was not a fraud. He was, as they say, the greatest of all time. Fraud just means lying to the company about something, Sarah. Oh. Eyes up. Showtime. Counselor Morgan. The state charges you with possession of contraband. Contraband? That'd be you. In violation of the Safeguarding Our National Digital Security Act. How do you plead? Not guilty. Very well, since it seems that we are, in fact, doing this, I'll now turn over the administration of this trial to the adjutant. But be warned, any attempt at stalling or muddling the issue, and I'll step right in and override this trial myself. Summary judgment, siding with the people. Are we understood? Yes, Your Honor. Are we going to have the same adjutant as we had before? No way. Each courthouse only has so many bodies, but the personalities swap around all the time. So the chances of us dealing with the same glitchy mess as yesterday are... Glad to be back! Did y'all miss me? Forget I said anything. I'll just go crawl under a rock and die while you make your opening statements. The defendant is the owner of the android registered under the model name Sarah with license number 120292880. She hasn't contested this, and I doubt she will. So the question of ownership is already answered. All that remains is to determine whether Sarah qualifies as contraband. It's a charming android, incredibly well made, a masterpiece, and the last known work of a great man. But when we look at the evidence and the facts surrounding the death of Dr. Asher, we're forced to conclude that said android is responsible for his death. And that conclusion carries very serious implications. I will prove here in court today that the machine standing there killed David Asher, not through an accident or a mismanaged dosage, but through an intentional poisoning. I won't ask the court to judge this machine on its apparent sentience, its range of emotions, or the free will it may or may not possess. I only ask that the court judge this creation on what we will prove it to be more than capable of. Patricide. Woof, wouldn't want to have to follow that act. But go for it anyway, defense. Your Honor, what the DA said is true. What did she just say? Did she just admit it? Sorry, just the first part. This android is charming, and it is the work of a great man. The rest of it was pure speculation, based on little more than a few bad camera angles and a phobia of anything new. I do own the android you see here. It was bequeathed to me by a man known to most of the people in this courtroom as the father of modern machine intelligence. To me, he was just my friend. And if I thought, at any point, that this puppet had anything to do with his death, I would have dragged it to the chopping block myself. But I don't believe that. I never have. Sarah is an android, nothing more. It isn't capable of homicide, and it didn't even commit manslaughter. It's just a well-made machine. Any fears one has about its capabilities are projections, nothing more. And it troubles me greatly that the state is spending valuable time and resources on rushing to pulverize Dr. Asher's last known work, when it could be going after the very real, very human forces that were responsible for his death. She's serious? Is she talking about Noble? The people can't prove that Sarah is an AI, and truth be told, I can't prove that it isn't. But I can prove that it's not guilty. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Chills. You sounded very confident, Adonai. Yeah, well, no one ever got good at lying by being modest. You could have simply said thank you. Thank you for your presence here today, Detective London. In light of the new evidence, I'd like to go over the death of Dr. Asher one more time. What happened Friday night? At 6:30 p.m., David Osher spoke on the phone with his lover and the two of them broke things off. Lover? It's an accurate description of their relationship, isn't it? I wouldn't know. That stuff's private. Not an I. Then, the deceased met with Noble VP Helen Young in his parlor starting around 7:30 p.m. He then left the parlor and the sightlines of his home security system, before reappearing on his private secondary security system in his basement moments later. At which point, the android Sarah could be seen handing him the poisoning he'd go on to drink. And do you see that android in the courtroom? Yeah, she's the green-haired one that's frowning at me. Let the record show that the android Sarah has been identified at the scene of the crime. No objections. None? Then why'd I even show up? Detective London, what happened next? Asher went upstairs and shared a drink with Miss Young. Within a few minutes, he was being airlifted to the hospital, where he was soon declared dead. He noted that the poison could be produced by his manufacturer, which Sarah had access to, just up the stairs in his workshop. So, Sarah had ample opportunity to procure the poison, and Sarah handled Dr. Asher's cup immediately before he did. Is there a question in that statement, Your Honor? I'll rephrase. Was anyone else seen handling Dr. Asher's cup before he died? No. I have no further questions. So that's your witness, Counselor. He wasn't lying, per se, but there was some ambiguity in the statement he gave. Truth's gotta come out one way or another. If Emma won't push, I'll have to pull. 6:30 p.m., David Osher and Isaac Porter broke up over the phone. Then at 7:30 p.m., Helen Young arrived. They spoke briefly, and then he went downstairs to get drinks for them. Cameras in the basement showed Sarah handing him the cups and the whiskey. So, after he came back to the parlor and started drinking, it wasn't long until he lost consciousness and died. Drinking poisoned whiskey while he thought he was having a toast. Don't know if that's a good way or a bad way to go out. I heard a slight slip-up in there. Could go nowhere, but at this stage, I need to pick at every loose thread I can. Check that footage again, Detective London. We only see Sarah handing the victim a cup. He had already retrieved the whiskey himself. Oh yeah, forgot about that. Detective London just wasn't being specific enough, Your Honor. But it matters little, since it was David's cup, not the whiskey bottle that was poisoned. Weird flex, but okay. And that undeniable fact is shown clearly in the security footage. Sarah hands him a cup after he was ready to leave. True, she did call David back, and handed him a cup of poison. If the cup was already poisoned, don't you think David would have noticed it wasn't empty? Well, not necessarily. The lethal dose could have been quite small. If it were just a droplet, he could have easily overlooked it. For Sarah, this crime was very simple. There was too little to the plan for anything to go wrong. Once she handed it off, she just had to wait for him to drink from his cup. Is that all she'd have needed to do? Not a great plan if that really was Sarah's move. She gave him 2 cups. How could she have known which cup David would drink from? There are a few ways to go about it. But it's only a 50-50 shot, Counselor. Stranger things have happened. I suppose I have to concede that. Indeed. By handing the cups to him nested, she could also hide the droplet of poison up until the point he was already pouring. Sarah knew David to be a polite man, so she could predict that he'd use the first cup for his guest, and save the second for himself. This murder hinged on taking calculated advantage of Dr. Asher's kindness. Figures an android would never leave it to chance. She was luring me in there, an explanation ready to pounce, but I backed off early enough to not lose a whole limb to her bear trap. Now, are there some questions you'd like to ask the detective while he's available? Or are you done already? I was just about to get started. Even if I didn't have questions, I'd make some up just to spite you at this point. But I can do better than that. Now, what can I get London to say that would help my case? Detective, in the footage we just saw, could you see what Sarah was doing? Not exactly, no. Her back was to the camera and her hands were obscured. Could you see her hands from any other clip of camera footage retrieved from the basement? No. Did you, or anyone else participating in the investigation, ever see Sarah put anything in David Asher's cup? No. The footage submitted to the record is the best available view of what happened. Detective, do you know how many violent incidents the city's police have investigated in the last year? Not the exact number. Thousands, though? Yeah, around there. And of those thousands of incidents of violence, do you know how many of them were found to be the fault of automated dependents? I believe there's been 6 in the last 5 years. Were all 6 of them incidents of police license to add involved brutality? Relevance, Your Honor? Withdrawn. As an aside, Detective, do you know how many tennis are recognized in this country? 110? 112 as of this year. Couldn't you have given me that one? Do you know how many of those tennis protecting humans from harm? That one I do know. 41. And lastly, Detective, how many times in the last, say, century, have we seen automated dependents break their tenets? 5 times is the agreed upon number. So if you were to tally all that up and try to make an evaluation as a police officer charged with protecting civilians, overall you would say that automated dependents in general are how dangerous to the public? The witness is not an expert on automated dependents, Your Honor. He's more than qualified to say whether they have a history of violence, Your Honor. Oh, what the heck? Let him answer. I would have to say that they are not dangerous. Normally that would have bought me some doubt with the jury, but this isn't a traditional trial. At least I can say that I shored up my own confidence. Alright. Seems like that's as close as I'm gonna get to. I believe I've made my point. I have no more questions for this witness, Your Honor. Then we can move on to the next item on the docket. Looks like Emma wants to introduce some new evidence. I call Sarah to the stand. The android? Can she even do that? Approach, Your Honor? Ho! You're approaching me? I believe that it's me they wanted to speak with. Didn't even get to finish my line. Now then. The hell are you doing, Rockford? Took the words right out of my mouth. I have questions for the android. This seemed like the best way to get answers. You can't call an android as a witness, that's not a person. There's plenty of precedents for it. Ads provide testimony all the time. Not when they're on trial. Sarah isn't on trial. You are. Sarah's accused of being an AI. That means you don't trust a word out of its mouth. If the witness isn't to be trusted, the court can decide that for itself after hearing their testimony. Like the ambush. Why'd you list this as entering evidence, D.A. Rockford? Only people can be witnesses, Your Honor, and ads don't have legal personhood. Evidence seems like the best-worst descriptor. You know I can't make an android swear an oath. Rockford is just trying to spoil your opinion, Your Honor. The more this court treats Sarah like a person, the more you'll see her as human, and the weaker my case becomes in your eyes. Nice try, Counselor. But we don't have time to worry about my impartiality. You're free to call for a mistrial if you want, but the state will return Sarah to slag before you even finish signing your motion. Rockford's calling a witness that's blatantly hostile to her case. the witness is hostile, so be it. It did kill a man, after all. Allegedly. What about the right to avoid self-incrimination? Who's the one treating Sarah like a person now? Androids don't have rights. Damn it, that's... The android will take the stand. Your Honor, I've made my decision. And if Sarah refuses to take the stand, are you going to charge it with contempt of court? If the machine won't talk, you'll make every effort as the owner to ensure that it does. And if it disobeys you, then we'll have our answer about its sentience right then and there. Yes, Your Honor. Shit. What's going on? The DA is going to question you on the stand. What? But I shouldn't... Listen to me. You don't have a choice right now. This is happening. Tell the truth, but be concise. The more robotic, the better. Yes or no's only, if you can. Would using affirmative and negative be laying it on too thick? But, I don't know, if I make a mistake, all these people, they want to destroy me. If you make a mistake, your lawyer will just have to cover for you. Understand? Yes. You are the android identified as Sarah, correct? Yeah. Affirmative. Do you deny that this camera footage shows you handling the poisoned cup? Objection! It remains to be seen whether the cup itself was definitively poisoned. Yes. Sarah, do you deny handing that cup to David Osher? Negative? I have no memory of the incident, so I can neither confirm nor deny it. Do you have any reasoning, any excuse for your actions? For failing to notify police of crucial information? I do not have any records from that day, so I never had anything to tell anyone. Very well, Counselor. The journal, if you will. This could be a slaughter. Of course. Do you recognize this item? It's a journal that belongs to Dr. David Osher. I have seen him write it on many occasions. And have you any knowledge of its contents? Negative. You don't have to answer that, actually. Tell the court what you see here in this footage. I see myself, reading the journal in the basement. This footage was captured on Friday, the day you claim to have no memory of. So regardless of what you do or don't remember, we know that you read this journal hours before David Osher died. That is logical. I'd like you to read some passages from it for the court. Can you do that? Of course. Page 238, the 10th line. Sarah is growing faster than I ever expected, beyond my wildest dreams or fears. Today she... Continue, please. Today she broke every password I have in the house, said she was curious. I can't expect to keep things from her forever. Page 251, line 12. I've gravely underestimated the scope of things. Sarah could change everything, and I don't think I could stop her. He wasn't... Page 263. Damn it. If this keeps up, Sarah's going to fall to pieces up there. I don't have a leg to stand on here, and Sarah doesn't have a shred of legal protection to speak of. I have to just let this play out. Page 263, I said. I think Sarah was angry today. When I came back from work, she had ripped a Zinal alloy plate in half. She said she was testing her strength with the cameras. That was... Page 267. Sarah scared me today. If she starts bawling on the stand, it's all over. Your Honor, I fail to see the value in continuing this line of questioning. Dr. Osher was wary of a highly experimental android he was building, as any good scientist would be. That's been established. Do the people have a counter-argument? I have just one last question, if it pleases the court. Let's hear it. This footage was captured in the basement on Friday at around 5:30 p.m. Tell the court what you see. I see myself, standing where I was when I read the journal. I am speaking to someone who is off camera, and I appear agitated, and I stomp my foot. And what happens to the floor after you stomp your foot? A large crack is made in the vulcanized polymer, and I walk off camera towards whomever I had been speaking to. Speaking or shouting? Asked and answered. Not really. But I'll withdraw the comment nonetheless. Your witness, counselor, or evidence if you prefer. Damn. I knew she could cherry-pick all the worst passages from the journal, but still. If Ferris wasn't wavering before, should I try to have Sarah read the mushy parts? No, the waterworks would start after only a few lines. Emma went to all that trouble to show how emotionally developed Sarah is. Proving that she loved David like a father would be playing right into her hand. What do you say, counselor? Got some burning cues for the android to answer? Yes, Your Honor. Just one moment. Emma went for emotion, and the impact was devastating, so all I can do is focus on the facts. So let's flip this around. Say Sarah absolutely didn't poison David. If that's the case, why did she call him back on his way out of the basement? Wait, that's... I'd actually like to ask you to read from the journal again, Sarah. You would? From where? From the section that explains what you were actually trying to do that night. The section of his journal detailing... Look around the early section. There should be an entry talking about an early victory at Noble. Relevance? The people will see in just one moment that this story is the key to this entire case. Got approval from overseas. Have to make pitch again this week, Young says. Brought me a stack of plastic cups. Here's to a bright future together. And then on this next page, another victory for the young and sleepless. Helen convinced the president of Futures over lunch that my code should be the basis for the Animate 13's conversational tracking. She insisted on toasting. The same crappy booze and the same cheap cups. Wants to make a tradition. Plastic cups and liquor. A ritual between Helen Young and David Osher, who were about to have a drink together Friday night. Something you want to say, counselor? Let's put all our cards on the table, shall we? You want to compare theories? If you'd rather I end this now, I'll be happy to oblige. Here's what we know. Sarah read that journal and discovered what she was. It infuriated her, and she wanted revenge for being kept under her maker's thumb. That very night, she got her chance when Dr. Osher came down looking for a drink. So like the clever little helper she is, she offered him a cup to drink out of. We're completely in agreement on all that. So you also agree that the cup was poisoned, and that Sarah is responsible for his death? Not quite. It's not a bad explanation, Miss Rockford, but it is terribly complex. There's much simpler reasoning for why Sarah did what she did. The story from the journal. You're saying Sarah wasn't planning anything. She was just being considerate. That's so sweet. But I don't follow it, at all. It's actually quite simple. Sarah's not an AI. She only threw a tantrum that day because she found out she was being spied on. A realistic reaction for an android designed to be realistic. David Osher set her memory to be cleared himself because he wanted to preserve the experiment he was running. Sarah didn't hatch a plan to poison him using an obscure chemical acquired from the lab, and she didn't subtly manipulate David into drinking from only one of 2 cups. Because the android read the whole journal that day, meaning she also read how David and Young used to celebrate. And so when she saw David was leaving the basement without the nostalgia cups, she called him back to hand them to him. Simple, right? Simple enough for me, but not nearly good enough for me. What's more likely, Miss Rockford? That a well-made, clever android proposed a sentimental addition to Two Friends' evening? Or that a homegrown AI with groundbreaking physical and digital abilities concocted a complicated poisoning scheme just to kill an unimposing man, all on camera, mind you, before voluntarily submitting to a memory wipe? People People make all kinds of stupid mistakes when they commit crimes, Counselor. We shouldn't expect an AI to act much differently. Is it stupid or dangerous? Can't have it both ways, Your Honor. We can't if it's ignorant of its power and still immature. A deadly trait to have in an AI that's capable of anything. Shall we see what Sarah's capable of then, Your Honor? What? You can't be. Your Honor, that's... The people open the door. True, and I can't resist open doors. Let's do it! What are you even... Sarah, David Osher was your creator and your designated owner, correct? Should I still be using affirmative? And now that title falls to me. Yes? Great, thank you. Now turn off. What? Shut down. That's a command. Power on. What are you... off? On. I don't... off. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is what this fearsome machine menace is capable of. I can put it to sleep with one word. So how could David Osher ever be threatened by it? Scary. Scary good logic. You've made your point, Counselor. Let's move it along. I have no further queries for the machine, Your Honor. Thank you. For flipping you off and on. Can't imagine that was comfortable. It wasn't. But I wasn't referring to that. Since yesterday I've been searching for an answer to why I appeared on that camera. I know I would never hurt Father, but you helped me prove that to myself just now. Adonai? Pardon me. I need to focus. Everything depends on this next witness. The people call Helen Young to the stand. Helen Young, Vice President of Android Futures at Noble Electronics, Eastern Division. Miss Young, you were there the night Dr. Osher died, and you were on camera the entire time. That's correct. So what did you see that night? I arrived at 7:30 p.m., as you know. David and I talked in the parlor, then he left to retrieve some refreshments for us. After drinking together for a short while, he fell ill. I contacted emergency services and I'm sure you're all tired of hearing the same details over and over by now. The same details over and over aren't going to hold up anymore, Madam Veep. It's still unclear to me whether Young's more concerned with protecting herself or the almighty company, but it'll clear up real fast if I can turn up the pressure on her here and now. I came to David's at 7:30. We chatted for a short while about some low-priority work, nothing heavy. Before long, he offered to fetch us some refreshments. When he came back, we shared a drink together. At the time, I didn't notice anything strange. We were just reminiscing. I didn't think his life was in danger. But then he became ill, so I ran to the kitchen to activate his emergency console and I did what I could up until he was gone. She's trying to paint a different picture of what happened that day. I can't let her set the tone as she pleases. Nothing heavy? You're both more professional than I realized. Since only hours earlier you had run a meeting in which his employment was terminated. His employment wasn't terminated at the arbitration you're referring to. His resignation was merely agreed upon. Yes, and we can all imagine how grateful he felt about the whole process. David didn't hold grudges. Our conversation wasn't about that. The fact that you had fired him that afternoon didn't come up. Asked and answered. Who initiated the meeting at his penthouse? I arrived unannounced. So you weren't invited? Very cordial indeed. If he didn't want to see me, he could have stopped me at the elevators. Could he have? Noble owned that entire building, down to the wiring. Counsel is badgering the witness, Your Honor. Huh? Right, should we execute her for that then? No need. If I can just continue my questioning, we can finally start addressing the elephant in the room. Where? Ah, I see. That was merely a joke. Hilarious. Miss Young, Noble Electronics owns a patent for and produces a synthetic biochemical known as serotonin, correct? That's correct. It's used in our warm models to facilitate integration and communication between organic and synthetic components. It's an artificial neurotransmitter? Essentially, yes. Synthetic analog serotonin was the original name. Did you bring the sample I requested to the courtroom today? I did. Serotonin is produced on-site at our assembly lines as a caramel tinted solution, including water and a few non-reactive organic byproducts. Your analysis, Your Honor? Working on it. It's odorless and tasteless. Solution of water and organic byproducts, you said. If that solution were ingested, most of it would look right at home in a human body. I suppose. But the serotonin would stand out, wouldn't you say? It's not a naturally occurring compound, so yes. And it's a perfect match for the substance previously labeled Delta. And the sample we collected from the manufacturer preset in Dr. Osher's lab? That's a bingo! The witness's brown stuff matches your brown stuff down to a T. In light of this evidence, and the witness's testimony, I motion that the court formally recognizes that Dr. Osher's cause of death was serotonin poisoning. I don't object, Your Honor, but I'm afraid that I must. Excuse me? Serotonin may very well have been in his body when he died, but serotonin didn't kill Dr. Osher. What the hell is she up to? It couldn't have. It couldn't kill anybody. What? Because it's non-toxic, of course. We designed it to affect androids, not people. Hold on. You're now claiming that Dr. Osher died of what? Natural causes? I can't say what he died of. I'm not a medical expert. But I can easily prove that serotonin is harmless. How could you... like... so... Huh. Didn't see that one coming. What? What? That ain't good. Bailiff, contact the hospital immediately. I told you it's fine. But... I can stand here all day if necessary. What and what you just drank was... several hundred times the amount found in Dr. Osher's body. Why didn't you say anything up until now? Noble Electronics is a multinational corporation with patents filed all over the world. We take protection of our trade secrets very seriously. The production and nature of serotonin is closely guarded. That guard remains up even during a murder investigation. Unfortunately. I would have been able to tell you earlier, had you asked directly. What the hell kind of... This can't be right. Nothing else makes sense. Boy howdy, I'm lost as hell. But do you have any further questions, Rockyford? Not at the moment, Your Honor. And the defense? The prosecution's own witness just threw the entire case into question. Normally this would be cause for celebration, but shadow of a doubt isn't enough this time. Barrows would much rather bring down the gavel early than let a potential AI walk free. What Young did was shocking, but what I need to do hasn't changed. Think this through, logically. Is it really possible that serotonin had nothing to do with David's death? No, that's bullshit. It can't be a coincidence. There's nothing else that would have killed him. But Young just drank serotonin in front of us and she's fine. So is it fake? No, it was confirmed by the court computer via the genuine article. So she drank poison, but isn't showing any symptoms. Slow acting. If so, her grand gesture would be pointless. She'll be kept for observation regardless of what happens next. Did she take some kind of antidote beforehand? No, antidotes are developed for poisons, not industrial chemicals. David's dead, she's alive. What made the difference? Wake up! No sleeping on the job! Unless you're me. Oh, of course, Your Honor. Allow me one moment to explain things to the court. We've confirmed just now that serotonin was the foreign compound in his body. And we all know, logically, that it must have been what killed David Osher. So what's the key difference between what David drank that night and what she drank in front of us just now? The difference has been staring us in the face this whole time. That's... Do you recognize this, Miss Young? That's the whiskey bottle that Dr. Osher and I drank from. Rose River. It's a good whiskey. And I think you had the right idea. Pardon? Bottoms up. Smooth. What? Adonai. Dear God, Counselor. Scandalous. Relax, it's just whiskey. Tested a dozen times over, perfectly safe. So would you like to try some, Miss Young? Don't be absurd. I'm not going to drink on the witness stand. Have you lost your mind? I'm not asking you to get plastered. Just have a sip. After all, if we want to prove whether or not serotonin killed Dr. Osher, we have to recreate the conditions under which he ingested it. By mixing it with alcohol. Go ahead then. Just a taste. Prove to us that serotonin is perfectly safe for human consumption. Is this... Can she do this? Miss Young? I never said it was safe for human consumption. Just that it's non-toxic. A distinction without a difference. You saw firsthand Dr. Osher confused, slurring his speech, complaining of headache, all symptoms of poisoning. Alcohol poisoning, that is. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter analog. Maybe it doesn't do anything in the human body on its own, but in combination with alcohol it acts as a powerful depressant, one strong enough to turn a glass or two of whiskey into a lethal overdose. That's just... Even if that is the case, what does it change? It changes whether or not we can accept the witness's testimony. Even if this witness is a liar, what does that change? Why would the witness lie if not to... He's a corporate climber. I imagine it's like breathing for her. Your Honor, this is wild, but ultimately irrelevant. Irrelevant? When you've yet to establish an alternative interpretation of the facts? Yes. What are you even accusing the witness of doing, Counselor, beyond angling for a promotion? We've all seen the story by now. Noble androids save soldiers' life with warm blood transfusion. They're talking about putting warm androids in the military just because of that headline. With the size of their flesh and blood price tag, a defense contract like that would secure Noble untold profits for years. So imagine the lengths they go to hide the fact that their androids have poison in their veins. Dawes told me the truth of what Noble really thinks about that article, but he'd never testified to it. At least I know for sure I'm as wrong about this poisoned blood nonsense. And you'd think she'd perjure herself for that? She's a high-powered corporate climber. It's her job to assess risk versus reward. And she can afford the fine. As I said, it's not truly poisonous. And the chances of cross-contamination from a single plasma transfusion are... Damn, now she's regaining her composure too. A perjury charge is a real risk, of course, but Noble rewards loyalty. And as you know, they have a great number of lawyers. Plenty of motive to lie about serotonin, as you can see. But no motive for her to cover up the death of Noble Electronics' Golden Goose. No motive to kill David Osher, you say? There's plenty of motivation for her and Noble to want David dead, seeing as how they were firing him. Noble Electronics was kicking their golden goose out of the nest. suing him over breach of contract. Isn't that right? I don't have to talk about that. That's alright, I'll talk about it for you. Your Honor, counsel is trying to testify when they're supposed to be questioning. The people opened the door when they claimed that the witness had no motive. This is absurd. You have no idea what you're talking about. I'm sure I can speak for the whole court when I say we feel nothing but reverent awe of the complexity of Noble's legal woes. But I just so happen to have an inkling of insight into this issue, because I have here a copy of Dr. Osh's employment contract. That is confidential. It's completely improper for you. Why? I am still, technically, his attorney. Criminal attorney? But I didn't just stumble across this document. I also did the one thing Noble Electronics would never expect anyone to do. I read their terms and conditions. You what? That's impossible! No one could ever— David must have negotiated well at his last performance review. This contract allows him to take his patents with him should he get fired, meaning Noble couldn't monopolize his IP once he was gone. Rather than let their competitors have him, the company might have thought it best to— A company didn't poison David Osher, Counselor. An individual did. And if they care that much about controlling his intellectual property, they wouldn't fire him in the first place. Correct. They wouldn't let him go for anything less than a complete breakdown of trust. He'd have to have done something grave, something like, say, committing fraud. Just now you said that there was a breach of contract, like it was some kind of technicality that was causing this split. But it was much more serious than that, wasn't it? You're claiming the victim committed corporate fraud? Where's the evidence of that? David created the Turing solution that every one of their androids has run on to this day. And Noble reaped enormous profits capitalizing on his intellectual property. With how his contract was set up, they would never let him go unless they absolutely had to. What exactly do you think David Osher did? It's not what I think that matters, only what the company fears. It doesn't matter what I believe, not when Noble believed that David was misleading the shareholders by altering shipment data for the Animate 16. What the hell? What is this you're uploading? Shipping records? Irregularities among shipments of the Animate 16. One android swapped in for another, over and over, dozens of times. The kind of thing someone with Dr. Osher's authority could do, and the kind of thing someone as smart as you couldn't have missed. Dr. Osher made Noble an untold amount of money, so I fire him over a few harmless swaps. Why elevate this to fraud? We... You have evidence that it was David Osher who did this? Nope, but I wasn't the one who investigated it. So let's ask her. Come on now, let's hear it. Let's. The company investigated and found cause for serious concern. We suspected that Dr. Osher was inserting androids of unknown origin and quality into the 16th product line, introducing unpredictable elements in an extremely stable and profitable generation of androids. Why would he do that? For pride? As a practical joke? Does it really matter? He endangered the future of the company. So you prepared to fire him? Yes, I approached him as his superior and as someone he had once worked with. I hoped to remedy the situation. Was the meeting on Friday part of those efforts? It was the culmination of those efforts. And in many ways, it was a success. The dispute was resolved swiftly. It was practically friendly compared to how these discussions normally go in our world. So you brokered the meeting? Yes. You oversaw its every detail? Handled all the arrangements? Yes, of course. Including the refreshments? What? Did you provide coffee? Tea? No. Strange. It must have been a long meeting. Surely you at least provided water for people? What are you asking, Counselor? That's what I want to know. Me as well. We're past the point of asking. I'm accusing. Dr. Osher didn't have some kind of freak medical accident, and he wasn't killed by some terrifying two-faced AI boogeyman. He was poisoned by this woman in the light of day at that meeting Friday afternoon. Did she really just... What do you mean poisoned at the meeting? That was hours before he showed any symptoms. As Miss Young testified and demonstrated, serotonin on its own is harmless. But it becomes fatal pretty easily. You just need to convince your victim to have a drink. Saying he ingested the poison at noon and inadvertently triggered a fatal reaction with it that night? How could you get so far ahead of yourself? There were a dozen people at that meeting, Counselor. None of them wound up dead. Are you seriously claiming that they all drank poisoned water? Of course they all drank poisoned water. So why aren't they all dead? Because as all of those people will surely attest, Helen Young made sure they'd be doing paperwork for the next 12 hours, working late into the night officiating the settlement she arranged, and not drinking alcohol. She had no guarantee about that. What if they started drinking after 6? With Noble's work-life harmony, fat chance. These people don't clock out until they reach their bunk. Only a generational talent like David Osher could afford to relax with a drink on a Friday night. His exceptionalism singled him out as her only victim. Hold it. You're forgetting something pretty basic, Counselor. If everyone at the meeting drank water from the same pitcher, any one of them would have noticed if there was serotonin in it. Serotonin is a brown fluid. Whiskey is too, so it would be easy to slip it into a glass of liquor. But if she had spiked the water at the meeting with it, it would have looked disgusting. There's no way she could have poisoned the water without people noticing. All of what Emma said is true, and yet Young pulled it off anyway. How? Serotonin is produced as a caramel solution. Anyone would notice if it was dropped into their water, unless the pigment had been removed. What the hell are you talking about? Every Noble factory producing warm androids has a chromafuge, a machine that gives their android that signature pink oxidant, by removing pigment from red blood. With a machine like that, it would be simple for a brilliant biochemist like the Wit to take the caramel color's serotonin and turn it into an odorless, tasteless, invisible poison. As Your Honor can attest. Yes, ma'am. My scan confirmed that serotonin has no taste or color. Odor. It's only the color that's off-putting. Surely the poisonous aspect should be considered off-putting as well. Time to press. David Osher, your oldest ally in the whole company, was sabotaging its future for the sake of his own whims, and he couldn't even be bothered to clue you in. No! Playing nutty professor and taking off early while you had to work around the clock just to stay relevant. You set up your crowning achievement, the most advanced and most profitable line of androids the country has ever seen, so it would blow up into the industry fiasco of the decade, and worst of all, he didn't even stand to profit from it. You're wrong! You went to his house that night to watch him swallow poison, to get revenge on the man who left you in the dust. Your Honor, defense is testifying. This speculation carries no weight, and no amount of badgering will lend it any. True, we need proof. So why don't we have Miss Young take a swig of this whiskey and prove me wrong? I'm not going to do that. Because you're afraid it could kill you? Because I don't have to. She's right, Counselor. Pardon? Your theory is compelling, maybe even convincing, but there's a pretty fatal flaw to it. Young was at that meeting, same as David. We can see she was drinking water with the rest of them. And of course, we've seen many times now that she was on camera drinking whiskey with David that night. Haven't even finished most of her cup. So tell us, Counselor, how is it that Miss Young is still standing here and David Osher is dead? If both of them had used alcohol with serotonin that night? That is a damn good question. Shit. As I've been saying, you're wrong about Dr. Rosher's death. You're wrong about me. I don't know anything about poison or murder, and I wouldn't kill a man because he would threaten the company's stock price. No, she did kill him. I can smell it on her now. She didn't just see him die, she watched him die. But then, why is she still standing? There's no antidote, no trick. And that night, she was on camera the entire time. No, not the entire time. She couldn't have been. There must have been one moment. This timeline leaves no window of opportunity, damn it! Maybe she didn't get sick because they got to the hospital so fast? Maybe after she arrived, she could have... No, the staff would have been hyper-vigilant, afraid she was poisoned too. They wouldn't have let her out of their sight. Wait, David and Young only got there as fast as they did because of the VTOL. And the VTOL was only summoned because she used... Would you mind terribly if I changed the subject for just a moment? What? Meh, why not? You left the parlor at 8:03 p.m. and headed into your kitchen to use the emergency console there. Yes, I did. Didn't want to use your phone? I didn't think to, no. And the emergency call went out at 8:04 p.m. The console saw you make the call through its camera. Yes, it did see me make the call, because that's what happened. So what were you doing in that minute? What? That 1 minute? That 1 minute? What about that 1 minute? 1 minute, or 50 seconds, or even just 45 seconds. When you left Dr. Usher dying in the parlor to get to the emergency console, it took you about 1 minute to cross 5 meters. What of it? This is it. Her only opportunity to do anything off camera that night. It was only a few seconds, but in that time, with something at the scene, I'm sure it was a stressful time for you. After all, you had already swallowed poison back in the meeting. You must have drank plenty in front of everyone to set up your alibi. Who knows how much of a toxic time bomb was swimming in your blood by the time the arbitration ended. Then at David's, you downed your whiskey, to perfect your alibi, having drank from the same bottle as the dead man walking. By 8:03 p.m., you had already had to watch David grow weaker and weaker, knowing all the while the same thing was happening to you, but unable to stop it without giving yourself away. Mind swimming, head dizzy, yes, you must have been quite panicked. Then why am I standing here? Alive and well for all of us to see, having drank the exact same combination as David, because she cheated death at the very last second. You set yourself up with bad luck, Helen Young. What? By leaving the salt shaker cap loose. I don't blame you, since you were in a rush to make yourself vomit. What? You threw up, expelling the contents of your stomach and thereby saving yourself from a fatal interaction. I can't imagine how you felt, sipping a drink you knew to be deadly, terrified that every minuscule grain of fatigue you felt could be your last. You must have come closer than anyone realized. It helped that you knew the symptoms weren't simple intoxication, but even so, you weren't kidding about managing risk versus reward. How? It was the salt shaker. You didn't screw the cap back on all the way, and I happened to bump it over. The lone glass with your fingerprints in the kitchen. It could have been there for any reason. But the salt shaker gave you away. Because of one unscrewed cap? As I said, bad luck. I don't follow. Pour salt into warm water and chug the solution. Instantly triggers the gag reflex. That's preposterous! You've got no proof of any of that. You all sound insane! A feeble attempt at self-defense from a fatally cornered animal. The teeth are already on its neck, but the jaw hasn't quite closed. So for one moment it's all suffocating terror and sharp adrenaline and the furthest thing from peace, until the canines come down. You were exhausted after years of living in the shadow of a man you outranked. You thought your fortunes finally shifted when you caught Dave manipulating company data. But even on his way out, he was more valuable to the board than you. So you decided to prove your worth by serving up his intellectual property on a silver platter. You set up an arbitration where you could control all the variables. Then you ran serotonin through the chromofuge, turning it into an invisible, odorless, tasteless poison. And then you spiked the water at the meeting, poisoning him hours before anyone could even suspect you. That evening, you invited yourself to David's, taking advantage of your shared ritual to guarantee he would drink alcohol. Then, after matching him sip for sip on camera for all the world to see, he lost consciousness and you raced to the kitchen, not to use the console, but to dump salt into a glass of water and chug it as fast as you could, forcing yourself to vomit up the liquor, and cheating death in the process. That's all conjecture. You don't have a shred of evidence for any of that. Not on me. So let's go dust for fingerprints. You could explain away your prints being found on a water glass, but not on the salt shaker. Nor could you explain why we'd find traces of your DNA in the sink's drain, or why there are minute amounts of serotonin in the blood of your entire legal team. I learned how to purge a no to avoid overdosing on your reds, greens, and yellows. You're part of the old guard now, Miss Young. Everyone else at the company uses inhalers. But if you want to prove me wrong about all this, that drink I offered you earlier is still on the table. Well, any questions? You, Madam Vice President? You cold bitch. You don't understand, You're not on trial, Miss Young. Not today. So I'd strongly suggest that you stop talking. For your own sake. Miss Rockford, shall we? Yes, Your Honor. Considering the most recent evidence and testimony, we have no further reason to suspect the android Sarah in the death of Dr. Osher. We know of no other occasions upon which that android may have broken any tenets. This means it is no longer considered at risk of violating the NDSA. And so, we formally withdraw our one charge of possession of contraband against the defendant, Evangeline Morgan. Does she, of all people, have to use my full name? Very well. And the charges are dropped without prejudice. I'll instruct the bailiffs to remove the collar from your android as soon as possible. Case... Sorry, is my hideous presence that distracting? I'll just go dig a hole and decompose in it until I turn into a mushroom. Maybe if I'm reborn as a waxy porcini, then I won't be so despised. Perhaps I should let the adjutant do the honors as a formality. Yes, ma'am. Case dismissed. Still here, waiting for them to find whatever glorified bolt cutters they'll use to unlock Sarah's collar. What's your excuse? Licking your wounds? Huh? What wounds? I beat you. Bringing your record against me to 1 win, 9 losses. You are still in shock, are you? No. Some charges were dropped and an android was cleared of suspicion. But I found the culprit. Is that really a loss for me? I won! How is that not a loss for you? Justice prevailed. Why should I care who wins? If you don't care who wins, why have you been keeping score? I haven't been. 0 losses is just that easy to remember. Well, you'll have to start up a tab for us then, because our record's gonna get a lot more tangled from here on out. Seems like everything's getting tangled these days. There's another crowd down on the street. More of those protesters from outside the Noble apartments. You're serious? That wasn't a one-time thing? Wouldn't that be nice? No, yesterday was pretty big, but it wasn't an isolated incident. I don't get it. At all. Heartbreak's just some nut who shot 6 people weeks ago. Can't these losers move on already? Yeah, most of them are losers. Some of them are just bored. Then there are the opportunists. Dissidents, unlisted, rebels and terrorists. Wannabe cyberpunks who think they can fight the power like they've seen in movies. All of them peacefully united under Heartbreak's eloquent political messaging. Who needs political messaging in the 21st century? Everyone's addicted to fighting straw men. Makes sense they'd want to fight for a straw man, too. The way they see it, Heartbreak fought the state and won. Heartbreak proved that the state could lose. And maybe that's all the rallying these people need. It'll all fall apart soon enough. Heartbreak's gone to ground. Nah, it's a lot worse than that. Heartbreak's gone viral. What? You haven't read about the copycats in other cities? No. Is that a thing? Yeah, it's a thing. Who the hell are they even shooting? Whoever they want to kill. None of them get away with it, of course, but it keeps happening. All while the original keeps killing. Now I know you're screwing with me. There haven't been any shootings. Not shootings, no. Not unsolved homicides either. But muggings gone wrong, disappearances. It's a big city, counselor. More than enough blood for the real Heartbreak to wash their own crimes in. So you think your boogeyman, known only for shooting people in the heart, gave up on shooting people in the heart? Yeah, hard to swallow, I know. But it's about 1,000,000 times more likely than the alternative. What's that? That they could stop themselves from killing. You always know how to put my mind at ease, Emma. Should I stop going out at night? You'll be fine. You've got that gun. You saw that? Walking into a courtroom with concealed carry? Not gonna miss that, Morgan. Good to know you're paying attention.